My one sentence review of my Japan trip was one, I didn't realize how many Hello Kitties I bought until I was home, and two, how come someone not get lost in Shibuya Station? That's just impossible. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I went to Japan with my family in October. First time there, it was amazing, fantastic trip. We went to Osaka, Kyoto, and Tokyo. And of course, when in Kyoto, one just has to visit the one and only, maybe one of the most famous temples in the country, Kinkaku-Ji, also known as the Temple of the Golden Pavilion in Kyoto. And naturally, when we decided that we're going there, the book review vlogger inside me decided that I have to read the novel that was loosely based on the true story, the true history of the temple on our way there. So today we are diving into one of the most, I think not one of, for me it was the most haunting and psychologically intense novels in both modern Japanese literature and in my heart. The Kinkaku-Ji, The Temple of the Golden Pavilion by Japanese author Yukio Mishima. We have in this channel, we have read a bunch of dark twisted books before, right? We had our fair share of difficult reads. We read emotionally challenging, it makes you like you were on a roller coaster books. But this hits different because what I've read in the book versus what I've seen with my own eyes in the temple, it made a perfect comparison, contradiction that it echoes during my whole rest of the trip, which I think was really funny and was brilliantly made. And so today we are talking about this story that was adapted based on a real historical event, the burning of the Kyoto Golden Pavilion, and how it was transformed into a chilling meditation on beauty, obsession, self-identity, destruction. I like to call it, aka a crazy story about a Buddhist and a temple and how he destroyed it. So let's start with some basic introduction of the novel, the book. The book was published in 1956. The novel is inspired by a true story of a young monk who set fire of the Golden Pavilion in 1950, so 6 years before. Mishima, the author, got the idea of the story from a sentence that this young monk said himself after the fire, which was happened in reality. He said, "I envy the beauty of the temple." The author based the whole story on this sentence. He used it as a way to explore the inner world of a protagonist, which I actually think it should be an antagonist. When I started to read the book, right? We all know that he's evil and he set fire on the temple, which by the standard of Buddhism, if you set fire on a temple, it will bring you the cruelest, the worst punishment in hell after you died. So why did he do that? Before I start reading this book, I thought he was an evil person. He did something unspeakably evil, unspeakably bad. But when I start reading this book and when I finish it, this is a person who is both deeply flawed, of course, and disturbingly relatable, which it caused a lot of emotional intensity in my heart. Because, okay, so this story was told from a first-person angle. The narrator, Mizuguchi, grows up in rural Japan with a stutter and a sense of isolation that defines his entire life and worldview. He was never truly accepted and appreciated by anyone in his life. When he becomes an acolyte at the Golden Pavilion, he becomes obsessed with the temple's overwhelming beauty, a beauty he feels that he can never possess truly or even just fully experienced. His relationship with beauty, with all the beautiful things in life, is completely twisted. The more perfect and eternal the pavilion seems, the more it exposed his own ugliness and the isolation he had, the insecurity he has in his heart. His relationship with his friends were almost ruined at the end of the story, with women which he never actually knew how to approach, and with his family, with the temple. It was all ruined by the comparison of the beauty of the pavilion. And as Japan moves into war and post-war chaotic and lost mindset, Mizoguchi's fixation grows darker, eventually pull him toward a single catastrophic act. The more unhappy, desperate, miserable he was, the more beautiful, by comparison, the more beautiful and peaceful and eternally breathtaking the temple is. And I think the comparison and the dark, twisted mind that it brewed was eventually what pushed him toward the other end. Let me state the feelings I had when reading this book, because my feelings were pretty strong. I always think of myself as a fast reader, and I'm proud to be a fast reader. But when reading this book, everything felt slow. The time was slow, my suffering was slow. I had to read slowly because I can't rush, partly because it was beautifully written, absolutely masterpiece, that for the first time in my life, I felt like I'm eating a Michelin 3-star meal that I don't want to gulp. And partly because it was so dark and twisted, the power of the story was so strong that I can't allow myself to just get sucked in. I need to take a step back and take a rest, take a breath once maybe 20 pages. It was like witnessing an autopsy. You really want to know what happened, but you don't dare to open your eyes and just look. That was my first reaction of this book. So to me, it was probably the most torturous book I read. It stings because the protagonist wasn't evil. Here's the thing. I don't hate him. I don't even despise him. He was not pure evil. He was painfully human. That's what hurts me as a reader. He was resentful, alienated, longing for significance, connections, and appreciations in his life. He witnessed the ugliness from his mother having sex with other people, while his dad was also like witnessing it with him. He witnessed, which by the way, that part was very Freudian. He witnessed hookers with American soldiers, and he witnessed how his friends manipulated women, how beautiful women was tortured by men at that time. He had trouble talking to people, opening up. He hadn't a clue when it comes to women. He doesn't know what he was doing, what he was going to do. He hates himself. He has a twisted relationship with everything in his life, even the temple, especially the temple. To him, his life has no meaning. So he has to find meaning through destroying his God, his heaven, to make sense, to help himself make sense of his life. In order to understand this book, there was this story in the book that was mentioned several times. I think to me it was like a summary of what this book about. So there were monks of the East Hall and the Western Hall in Nansen's monastery. One day they were arguing over a beautiful stray cat. Seeing their attachment and the conflict they caused by the cat, Nansen stepped in. He picked up the cat and tell everybody, if anyone can say a single word of Zen regarding the cat, he'll save the cat. But sadly, no monk said anything. They cannot respond to his request. So Nansen killed the cat. It was a mentally disturbing story, and the author used the story multiple times in the book. He mentioned it multiple times. It was to ask a question about who can truly own beauty. No one. No one, like nothing in the world, nothing beautiful in the world that you can own. That was yours. In the world, we are all alone and desperate, and no one can truly own anything. I think not just the cat story, but also this story was one of the reasons that the story was so thought compelling. Of course, first, it's definitely Japanese in terms of the style and the spirit inside it. A lot of the views, a lot of their culture was based on this fact that there were beautiful things in the world, but none of us can ever own. So we must do everything we can to catch the moment of the witness, to witness the beauty, and to keep it in mind by ourselves. Realizing that was like realizing a part of the Japanese culture, their DNA, that it was a thought experience, asking our relationship with the outer world. By asking that, this book is actually a comparison. Kinkaku-Ji, the most famous, the most beautiful temple in the world. But the story in the book was disgusting, chaotic, emotionally overwhelmed, and whenever Mizoguchi's thoughts becomes dark, when he asks himself questions about his life, people around him, the temple, the language itself, it's beautiful. Almost every woman in this story was beautiful, but they are controlled by a power that owned by the other people, men, society, country. They cannot see the protagonist. They don't think he exists. No one noticed him. And as a reader, I noticed that no one in this story truly captured what they actually want. It was the contrast, the beautiful temple and the desperate people that lived around it, make the novel unforgettable. We witnessed the protagonist, his transformation from being isolated to being desperate, and eventually he crossed the line. Sometimes I think of this book as a philosophy story more than just literature, as the author asks questions about life choices, self-identity, evil in humanity, metaphysics. You can sort of tell that he was in a deeply disturbing phase of his life. He eagerly wanted to make a change and felt utterly disappointed when the reality bounced back with nothing in return. It was like shouting to a cave with no echoes. Thinking about the way he ended his own life, I would say you can find traces from this book about how he made of the world that was around him, which made this book philosophically difficult to read. It's a smooth story. It's not hard to understand what happened in the book, but be aware that it might suck you in, and it's a masterpiece. It's unsettling, it's chaotic, it's poetic. And if you think about visiting Japan, I think you should read it, and then you will feel what I felt when I walked past Kinkaku-Ji with hundreds of tourists, a feeling that when facing such a magnificent temple, human beings are so small and irrelevant, and no one can truly own a piece of the reality we live in, because tourists come and go, we live, we die, people change, things change, spring comes and winter comes, but the temple will always be there. And when I look at Kinkaku-Ji, it was a packed day, of course, But when you walked in and you saw the temple reflecting in the water, everything was so peaceful. Everyone around you was taking selfies. The thing I felt was utter loneliness. And that's all for today's video. I hope you like it and consider reading this weird little book. Or I hope if you have planned to go into Japan, maybe visit the temple because it was absolutely breathtaking. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.